Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
So hey everyone, welcome to the Fireside Chat with Rudolf. Rudolf is a VP for process discovery and process mining as well. And he's currently part of the global growth team at UiPath. So it's a really pleasure to have you. But before we start, would like to introduce myself as well. My name is Bob Rode from Plug and Play. I'm really excited to host you all today for this session. I'm really also looking forward to catch up with Rudolf and about his previous experiences as a successful founder, and also tap into his knowledge base of process mining and RPA in general. So before starting our fireside chat, I'd like to introduce Plug and Play briefly, as we may have some people in the audience who have never heard about Plug and Play. So just really quick, Plug and Play is the world's largest corporate innovation platform, and we run two main business activities. First, we're early stage investors with 200 investments worldwide every year, and we co-invest with hundreds of VCs every year. So here we mainly focus on pre-seed, seed, and Series A deals. Besides our investment activities, we help over 400 large corporations with their innovation initiatives. Over the past years, we have built a large ecosystem of corporates, startups and scale-ups, regulators, mentors, investors, universities, and governments. And as you can see here, we have extended our network of on a global scale with over 30 offices worldwide, with more offices being announced soon. So on the venture capital side, we're really lucky to have back some amazing companies and founders, most notably PayPal, Dropbox, N26, Rappi, and many others. This year alone, we will be able to announce 10 more unicorns from our existing portfolio. So it's been a really exciting year for us. Here in Europe, on the corporate side, we are collaborating with over 100 corporate partners, L'Oreal, UniCredit, BNP Paribas, Daimler, Porsche, Carrefour, Inditex, just to name a few, and the list obviously goes on. Overall, we are working with over 400 large corporations, as mentioned before. So how do we actually help our corporate partners? We help them in various ways. So from connecting them to the startup ecosystem through scouting services and different formats to access the best solutions out there, to creating value through running POCs, pilots, or operating their corporate venture capital units for financial return. We're also working actively with our partners on their own culture transformation when it comes to innovation. And our services go way beyond startup related services, as we are a global ecosystem player, and we're happy to make the most relevant connections for our corporate partners. So please feel free to reach out anytime if you have any Plug and Play related questions. With that, I would like to start our fireside chat with Rudolf, who is a dear friend of ours. Also to be aware of time, as mentioned in the beginning, we will dedicate 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of the session for questions from the audience. So the brief introduction maybe already from my side and also on Rudolf. Previously, Rudolf has co-founded ProcessGo in 2010, a process mining company which got acquired by UiPath in October 2019. He began his career at IBM. So hi, Rudolf. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let me stop sharing my screen real quick, and so we can see you properly.
Hey, Bob, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. And one thing I would really insist on is I want you to call me Rudy, because Rudolf, nobody calls me Rudolf except, way back at school when I messed something up, I was called Rudolf, called to order. Otherwise, please call me Rudy, like everybody else.
No, for sure, Rudy. Yeah, it's
right.
Thanks again for joining us today. I think it's been over 2 years since we met in person. I believe that was at the Plug and Play headquarters in Sunnyvale. We were at a paddock, basically try to understand back then what you were doing, what Process Gold was up to. And obviously, since early 2019, so many things have changed also on your side.
Oh, yes.
And the whole world has gone through, the most fascinating transformation. So how have you been in general?
Oh, I have been great. It has been an amazing journey since UiPath acquired our company, and even before that, when we started Process Code back in 2009 or 2010, January to be more precise, and before that, I was already a founder of another consulting company. Started my career, as you correctly pointed out, with IBM very, very long time ago, or it seems very long time ago. I lost some hair, and some hair grew gray since that. But really, the last 2 years were quite challenging, of course. Everything changed, like for me, like for everybody else. And yeah, but we are living in the new normal. I relocated to Austria since then, really enjoying the countryside here and working globally at the same time. So yeah, change is the only thing that never actually changes, right?
Yeah, lovely. I see your background. It looks amazing.
Oh yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, so that's Austria behind you, right?
It is, yeah.
Perfect.
Part of it.
Very, very cool. So maybe let's start with kind of like from the beginning of your career. You mentioned you were working for a company, which is an IBM company now many years ago. So how did you end up founding your own company in Process Code? And I think for the audience here, it would be very interesting to understand what kind of solution Process Code provided.
Yeah, right. So, I actually started my career in the 90s with IBM, built the very first e-business consulting team for IBM, at the time where people were not really familiar with stuff like internet or intranet. Yeah, really, it happened back then. And, being I was a consultant for processes for many, many years. And then in 2009, really by coincidence, I met Will van der Aalst, who's the guy who invented this great technology called process mining. And when he introduced me to it, and I realized that it might really be possible to understand and to visualize business processes only from the data that is left behind when you execute or support business processes. I thought that this will change the way we, or at least I'm looking at business processes forever. So we founded Process Code. It's the very, very first, purely on process mining focused consulting company in Frankfurt. We had some partnerships with some other process mining vendors, and only in 2015 and 16, we decided that we don't want to continue this partnership anymore. We joined forces with a Dutch BI company. We integrated this technology from Will van der Aalst in the platform and came up with our own product. We won some great, great customers, worldwide customers, like some of the big audit firms worldwide. And yeah, so we did pretty well for about 2-3 years. And then in 2019, I received an interesting call from UiPath, and then everything changed.
Yeah, that's really, really exciting. But maybe before getting to the UiPath acquisition, I would love to understand how you kind of turned a consulting company to actually a product focused company.
Right, I think you guys were actually pretty much involved in that with Plug and Play. We one day we decided that we are not happy with the other solutions out in the market. Sometimes the product was not good enough, sometimes the people were a little bit weird, and we decided, if we want to really follow our vision and we want to create a good product, we need to be in control of it. And this is why we decided to join forces with this company. Will van der Aals again introduced us. We built a product, and then we basically we transformed the company from being a consulting company in a product company, because we had all the knowledge. We have implemented process mining all around the globe many times. We knew exactly what customers were expecting. And in order to create the best possible product, we decided that we need to be in control of the product, of course. If you rely on other people and you hope that they will implement the right technology and then even be kind to you and share everything with you, it sometimes doesn't work. And that's why we took control. We implemented it, and we started using our experience and our knowledge about the product, about the technology, and the knowledge about how to implement it with customers. And I have to say, it went pretty well.
Nice.
And this is also how we met Plug and Play. It's a funny story. I was working. You guys run this program called Startup Autobahn in Germany, right?
Yeah, in Stuttgart.
And we worked. Yeah, right. And we worked for one of the sponsors. And one guy one day asked me, "Hey, Rudy, what do you think about startup support programs? We are supporting, we are working on something like this. We're working with plug and play technologies. I had no idea what plug and play is. Would you be interested?" Of course, that's a question you never say no to. And I said, yes, of course. And then I received a call from you guys. And first I thought, oh my God, what are these guys talking about? What is Startup Autobahn? It sounds really weird. But I have to say it was fantastic, because we had the chance to participate, I think, a second batch in Stuttgart a long time ago. And we presented process mining on stage. We won some great partners like Webasto and many others. And that really was the start for the cooperation between you and us. So after you guys realized that process mining is a technology that can really provide a value, not only for the automotive industry, but basically for every single industry. Everybody runs business processes. Everybody needs more transparency. Everybody wants to transform business. And you need to know what the problem is before you can actually tackle it. So this is why, you guys invited us to I think it was the insurance batch in Silicon Valley. Yeah, and since that, I spent a lot of great times with you guys in Silicon Valley, in Sunnyvale, and that's how it all started.
I still remember when you told me that you have been collecting a lot of miles through through the programs. So, that's amazing. So would love to know, how actually UiPath approached you. So have you been in touch with them beforehand? So how did that happen?
Well, we were not in touch, not really. Of course, there was some short calls, or they wanted to sell us RPA, and I was in touch with some people over here in Europe. But it actually all started when I was in Sunnyvale, participating in one of your programs, and then one day UiPath gave me a call. Totally unexpected. Funny story. They thought I'm in Europe, so they wanted to call me at a convenient time from New York. But I was in Silicon Valley, which is the West Coast. And so they woke me up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And we still had a good chat for about an hour. And then they said, "Hey, we want you to reroute your flight. Please don't go back to Frankfurt, come to New York. We really need to talk." So 2 days later, I arrived at JFK, and we had a workshop for about 14 hours. Probably the most intense workshop in my life, because they really wanted to know everything about process mining, about the competition, about the products, about everything. Well, and at the end of the day, over the second bottle of red wine, steakhouse next door, we actually decided that a combination of the two technologies would be really beneficial for everybody, for the customers, for UiPath, for Process Code, and we should join forces. It took us about 6 months to figure out the details. And then on the 3rd of October 2019, we signed a contract. And 10 days later, we have already been on stage in Las Vegas, during the annual user conference of UiPath. And we announced that UiPath is actually now offering process mining in combination with the rest of the RPA platform.
Well, that's a really quick acquisition, it seems, right?
6 months.
Okay, no, that's amazing. And
if you really want it, you can do it. You can do it fast, of course. It doesn't need to be months and months of negotiations.
And if I understood correctly, the offering you provided with Process Gold was kind of an extension to UiPath's capabilities. So they didn't have those capabilities in-house back then.
No, absolutely not. They had some partnerships that didn't work very well. Because again, if the tools are not integrated, then it's really, really hard to use it. And so we decided that, we really need to integrate process mining and RPA. And the way I think about it, if you listen to people familiar with process mining, they will typically say that process mining is like an X-ray system for business processes. And it's a great picture. If it hurts, or if you want to avoid pain in the future, take the data from SAP, from any other system, push a few magic buttons, and you will see what your process really look like. But the question is, what's next? I mean, my example always was, if you have an accident like I did last year, fell off my bike, really terrible, broke my arm multiple times, ended up in the hospital. And of course, they performed X-ray on me. But imagine they would have sent me home with the pictures only and telling me, all the best and get well. That wouldn't solve the problem. So it was the surgery, it was the therapy, over the next year that helped me to move my arm again. So it's really, you need to find a problem and you need a solution in place to solve it. Of course, not every problem can be solved with automation, but you still need to understand what the challenge is. There's a great quote I read from, I think it was Einstein, who said it, if only 1 hour, or if I would have only 1 hour to save the world, I would probably think for 59 minutes about the problem and then 1 minute about the solution. Because once you know what the problem really is, it's typically much easier to find a solution, right?
Well,
so
I hope
this is why process mining. No, of course not. But if you think about process mining like X-ray and RPA as one way to solve the problem, there's a natural fit because it's all IT based. It's all on the computers. So this is why we decided to add it. If you guys like, of course I prepared some slides. I can share with you just to explain a little bit how this integration works and how it fits together.
I think that would be helpful because there have been quite some terminologies already, like process mining, process discovery. So I think it would be great if you can share something which visualize, what are those terms and what do they mean and how they actually relate to RPA.
Yeah, that's really my favorite part. And I actually, no, I don't need to share again. No, of course I need to share. So what I actually, there's a presentation I was always using on stage in Silicon, in Sunnyvale, in one of your pitches. So let me repeat that one because I really love it. It was heavily inspired by the way you typically present in the US. And, I'm the VP for Process Mining Discovery. Of course, you guys find me on LinkedIn if you like to connect. I love to connect. Otherwise, just shoot me a message at rudy@uipath.com. And I would be happy to answer your questions. And, being the VP for Process Mining is really cool, especially for a company like UiPath. But as a little boy or as a teenage boy, I wanted to become something totally different. I always wanted to be a superhero. And my favorite superhero was Superman. This guy, he was strong, he could fly, and he had one very special superpower. I thought as a teenage boy would come quite handy, and that was the superpower of X-ray vision. Of course, later I realized if I want to make some money, I need to pick a real job. So when I finished university, I started my career as a different type of a superhero, as a consultant for this organization. We talked about it before, IBM. And very seriously, my job wasn't to save the world, but my job was to help companies to become more efficient, to use IT better, to run better business processes. And I thought this is going to be an easy job because I had all the great knowledge from university, I had all the great IBM tools at my disposal. And only then I realized that the biggest challenge, again, sometimes is to understand what the problem is. Because if you ask people about how processes are run, a typical response is, honestly, I don't know. Of course, I know what the process is supposed to be, but how it's really run, I don't know. Well, and if you're a consultant and you get a response like this, what do? You do what consultants love to do, you do workshops. So you guys have maybe seen pictures like this before. It's a typical outcome of a full day workshop. You spend time with people, and at the end of the day, you have more processes than participants in the workshop because everybody will tell you a different story. And not everything will be completely true. Sometimes because people simply don't know what the reality is, or sometimes they don't want you to know what the reality is. Yeah, and again, I remembered Superman. I wished I would have the superpower of X-ray vision. And then back in 2009, I traveled to the beautiful country of the Netherlands, and I met Will, the guy who invented this technology at the University of Eindhoven. So what is process mining? It's not magic, but sometimes it feels like a way to automatically reconstruct and analyze any type of business processes. And the way it works is pretty much straightforward, because think about it, every transaction in any type of transactional system, like every posting of a document in SAP, every approval of an invoice, every payment, basically everything we do with, a certain type of computer or systems is leaving digital footprints behind. So the systems are constantly logging and recording what people are doing. And of course, this data is stored in the underlying database systems and log files. So all we need to do is to collect this data and create what we call event log. And in this event log, there are only 3 mandatory attributes. So the first one is what we call activity. Like in this example, register, define, permit, or confirmation. Now, every activity is represented by a timestamp in the system. And now if you sort these activities by the time, you already get a process, just activities following each other. And now imagine you do this not only for one single instance, like a single invoice of your process, but you do this for all the invoices you have in your system. Only then you will realize there is not such a thing as a process, but there are many different ways, we call them variants, how this process can be run. And believe me, not everything you will discover will make you happy, definitely not. And we need this transparency because of some assumptions and very little facts about the process. So typically people believe that the process is straightforward. And if you look at the simplified invoice approval process and you say, okay, if I move the slider in the application to something like 20%, you will see that we receive the invoice, we check it, we approve it, we pay. What's the problem? It's the most simple process you can think of, right? But if you move the slider to something like 40%, you get a different picture. You get a picture you might get out of a good workshop because people know that, they do stuff differently sometimes. But what do we get if we move the slider to 100%? You get what I call the big ball of spaghetti. Of course, our ball of spaghetti looks a little bit different. It looks more like this. But this, guys, is exactly the same process like on the left. The only difference is that this time we have visualized every single variation of the same process in the same picture. But that's the reality. This is why I know how the business is really run. So this level of transparency, to me, it's always, like an X-ray. So if it hurts, or if you want to avoid pain, take the data, push a few magic buttons, and you get full transparency. Of course, limited by the availability of data. That's a limitation sometimes. But, if I compare this approach to my previous life, then our clients worldwide are really saving a lot of time, a lot of money already on the discovery of products. And I'm not even talking about, about the improvements and the automation of processes. And the best thing maybe is you can repeat this over and over again, because once you are connected to the data, you can run work. You cannot run a workshop with consultants every single day. It's just not feasible. It would be too expensive, too much time consuming. But you can refresh the data all the time, and you will always be on top of your processes. So that's what process mining basically does. And if you think about this transparency, then maybe you guys understand, or I have a few more slides maybe later, how this relates and how this integrates with our RPA platform. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And so basically with the process mining, you actually understand your own processes and draw information out of it before taking actions, which will be taking in place through the RPA processes. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, it is. I have another presentation here. So, guys, today we are UiPath, and UiPath is not a process mining company. That's, this would be only very, very limiting. So UiPath is actually a company for robotics process automation. And the big purpose, of course, is business transformation. And for that, we need process discovery. So our core business really, if you look at it, are these little nice bots. Of course, that's the visualization. And these bots, they can read the screens, they can decide what to do. They can interact with any kind of application. It really doesn't matter what it is, SAP, ServiceNow, any type, because what the bots are actually doing, they are emulating people. So Bob, if you or if me, if we can push a button on the screen, if we can enter something, if we can read the screen, the bot can do exactly the same. The only difference will be that the bot will do this 365 days a year around the clock, and it will never complain about boring or dull tasks and asking for vacation, like we do sometimes. So this is how it all started. And if you look at our platform today, UiPath is the market leader when it comes to building, managing, and running the different flavor of bots. So we have attended bots for the front end, unattended for the back end, test bots to test applications and other technology. But we always need to understand what the challenge is. So this is why we start with the discovery box over here. You see process mining is only one of the tools we have here to manage the discovery. And only after we understand what the processes are and after we decided what should and what should not be automated. I mean, let's be clear about this. Automation is not the solution for everything. If you discover compliance issues or fraud, that's definitely nothing you want to automate. That's something you want to eliminate, you want to stop. But again, you need transparency, and then we can apply our technology. At the end, we have bots and people again working seamlessly together, for example, with our action center. And we are using process mining not only in the beginning, but also along the entire process, just to make sure we are on the right track. So last slide for today, I promise. Really, the way we embrace transformation with our products is we first need to understand what the challenges are, what the problem is, discovery phase. And of course, our product is basically or mainly focusing on discovering RPA potential, but of course, along the way, we will discover more, like bottlenecks, compliance issues, already mentioned fraud. And only then you can think about how to improve the situation. And when I worked for IBM, we always talked about PPT. And it doesn't stand for PowerPoint, but it stands for people, process, and technology. So if you want to improve a situation, a process, you can train people to do a better job. You can change the process itself to run smoothly, or you can apply technology, like for example RPA, or you combine all of it for the perfect outcome. And no matter what you do, what you go for, afterwards you want to understand what the impact really is. So how did the process change? Are we achieving our objectives? And this is why, of course, we use the technology again to monitor the processes. And because you cannot expect that everything will be perfect from the start. Neither the bots nor people are perfect. And if you discover that maybe an invoice in a process was checked and approved by the same person, which is a violation or segregation duty violation, then of course we can reach out to the system, we can block this invoice from being paid, notify people to recheck and maybe reapprove just to be on the safe side, and then we start over again. And that's basically the way we are approaching this, and the way we are helping I think we have by now more than 9,000 customers worldwide, from small to the largest enterprises. Even companies like NASA are using RPA, so you can really find RPA all over the place. And they are using this model really to sustainably transform and improve their business processes.
Yeah, understood. Maybe to make it a little bit more tangible, what are some like the most used use cases out there where the RPA solutions can be applied?
Oh my God, there are so many of them. We have tons of slide decks with heat maps where you can apply the technology. I mean, so basically, maybe let me give you another example, something maybe everybody can relate to. In the past, I was flying a lot. I told you this. It only took me always a couple of months to renew my frequent flyer status. And every time I booked a flight, afterwards you receive an email from Lufthansa. You have to go to the website. You have to enter your booking code. You have to download the PDF document with your invoice. Then maybe you have to open it. You have to copy and paste some data from this invoice into your travel expense management system. And then you have to upload the PDF document, and then you will be reimbursed, or you have posted your invoice in the system. And this typically will cost you about 10 or 15 minutes every single time you fly. It's really annoying, especially since this is a completely rule-based and repetitive task. So what I actually did, I took, I looked at it and I decided to build a bot for me. And this bot was monitoring my inbox. And every time I received an email from Lufthansa, the bot knew exactly what to do. Basically repeat the manual steps automatically within seconds. And, and I saved some time. So, if you think about RPA, it's really about being more efficient, have time to do more creative, more valuable generating stuff. And some people sometimes expect that with RPA, you might be able to save up maybe 50% of your work time. No, sorry, that's simply doesn't happen. But you save 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, maybe 15 minutes elsewhere. And it really adds up, especially if you have a big organization and people are doing a lot of repetitive tasks, collecting data, maybe for reports from different sources. You can really automate this stuff. Yeah, I always say that in a perfect world, there would be probably no need for process mining, neither for RPA, because all systems would be fully integrated and all processes would be perfect. But that's not the case. And process mining is a great way to understand where inefficiency comes from. Be able then with RPA you can connect systems even if they are not integrated on a deeper level like API, because we integrate on the user interface level. That's the UiPath way. So that's where the name comes from. And then very quickly you have a solution which will save you, if you look at it. Sometimes we have customers saving really millions and millions and hundred thousands of work time for their stuff.
As you mentioned, the solution is working on the user interface level. Now I have a very basic question, all right? So can the customers or the users work on something else on their computer in parallel while UiPath is helping them with the automation of the processes?
Yes, definitely. Yes, that's possible. So there are different technologies. You guys, I'm not really an RPA expert, so there's so much to know about our platform. So I would really like to redirect you to our website. So we definitely have this technology where you keep working maybe with all your creativity on a presentation, and in a screen session, the bot can work on something totally different. If there's a question, if the bot needs to know, left or right, it will ping you. It will ask you, "Hey Bob, left or right? Please guide me." And then it will continue to work on the task you assign to it, or automatically, like in my example with my inbox. So it's a pretty cool technology, really. And we see even students using this stuff. So I think everybody of us knows and has some activities we do not really like because it's repetitive, it's mundane, it's boring. It's rule-based, and that's the stuff you can automate, especially if you are working like in the financial department. I mean, I think this session was set up for the financial industry, right? I
think a lot of people are probably from the financial services industry, but I think there might be also people from other industries as well.
But so if you're from financial industry, then most likely your company is already working with UiPath, because the beauty about FBIs, or financial banking, insurance industry, is that almost everything you guys do is already digital, right? I mean, it's different. If you think about a car manufacturing company, they have to move around a lot of atoms to make some money. But in the financial industry, you guys are moving around electrons, basically bits and bytes. Everything is digital. So, process mining and RPA is a great solution here. And if you want some more examples, again, ping me, Rudy at UiPath.com, and I will share some nice examples with you.
That's very kind of you, Rudy. I really find it fascinating that basically customers are free to come up with their own use cases, right? As they go through their daily tasks, whether it's reporting, whether it's sending out invoices, so on and so forth. So how aware is UiPath about all these use cases being applied? Are you guys able to track what your customers are doing on a day-to-day basis?
Good question. Honestly, no, because it's, as I said, 9,000 customers worldwide. We have about 3,000 employees currently, so that wouldn't even be possible to track every customer. And we have some great partners. So UiPath is a software company. We have partners, like, of course, the big GSIs, Accenture, PwC, EY, Deloitte, you call it, you name it. And then many, many smaller, very specialized consulting companies. And these partners, they understand the industry, they understand very well the technology, and they can really, bring it together. So find a great solution for the customer. Of course, we have our customer success managers, we have our professional services, so we are supporting a lot of customers. But I don't think that at UiPath we're ever aware of every cool automation our clients have implemented. Just impossible.
Got it. I think we can already open up the discussion to our audience as well. So feel free to ask the questions through the Q&A box. And we already have a question here. So Artem is writing, Rudy, what do you hold of process mining tools which monitor and mine UI interactions instead of data stored by the system? For example, Scan or Fortress IQ.
Yeah, that's great, Artem. So you're referring to a new sort or new kind of technology. It's also called mining, but it's called task mining. And you maybe remember that I said the only limitation for process mining is the availability of data. And sometimes, if you think about processes, people are still using tools like Excel, like email. I mean, there are no digital footprints for Excel. It's really hard to find out what people are doing. So we have this technology called task mining. It's similar to process mining, but with task mining, we actually first have to create our own event log. So it's a small recorder you install in the front end. You record what people are doing. It's a limited or timely limited study. So we are not spying on anyone. In some countries that might not be an issue, but in Europe, Germany, of course it is. So what we do, we invite people to participate in a study, maybe for a week, maybe some members of your financial department. We ask them to download the recorder, or IT can push the recorder to their screens. And then over maybe a week, we record what people are doing in selected applications. So you have to whitelist the application. People will always be aware that we are recording this window. They can always pause the recording. So for example, if you wanted, if we are recording the browser and you want to check out your private bank account over lunchtime, no problem. You can pause the recording and then we will continue. And then, we have a very, very sophisticated AI algorithm, which will go through all the data, hundreds of thousands of actions like clicks, keystrokes, screenshots, OCR data, and it will look out for repetitive patterns. And then it will come back with some ideas for automation. So, for me, again, I promised no more slides, but let me share this one with you as well. So wait a sec, where is it? Yeah, I decided to hide it, but let me show you. So basically the difference between process mining and task mining, what is it? So if you want to understand maybe how a typical SAP purchase to pay process, the classics, how it's really run. We look at the activities from process from the SAP data, so we can determine what happened and when. And then we can easily reconstruct a process like this, create purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, and of course, at the end, we pay the invoice. And this is the level of process mining. But in this stage, process mining can only tell you where a problem is. So let's say we discover that create purchase order really is the problem in the process. Then we need to use the magnifying glass or like a microscope to look closer. And only then you will realize that create purchase order actually is a sequence of actions where you first you receive an email, you open the attached PDF document, you copy and paste the data into SAP, and only after you save the transaction, you get the timestamp that will be then transformed or translated into create purchase order. And this is the level of task mining. So process mining can tell us, what needs to be improved, what needs to be automated, and task mining in a great way, really how to do it. And basically Scan and Fortress IQ. So I'm not really familiar with the tools. I know they are more or less doing the same, looking into the front end, trying to figure out what people are doing, trying to combine these activities in a process. But for me, task mining only doesn't work. Process mining on its own doesn't really work. If you are looking into automation, you need to have the overview, like the macro level, process mining, and then have the micro level to go into each activity and understand what kind of actions this activity actually represents. But I hope this is answering your question.
Perfect. I hope that answered the question. While waiting maybe for other questions from the audience, I just would like to maybe have a couple questions on the world of automation in general. So what are some of the technological advancement today do you see which could be very, very relevant for the upcoming years? Also, what's on your roadmap maybe?
Good question. What's on our roadmap? Even tighter integration, so let me show you something here. Again, let me share my screen and just show you an example. For example, this is one of our process mining dashboards. So here we see a process. This is some real data, one of our customers. And let me take you back. I don't want to explain everything how it works or this in detail, but let me take you back to the third quarter of 2020, because this is where the automation journey for the customer started. And if I look at my process, this is an invoice approval process, we see the most common pattern. But if I add all of my details, you will discover the little ball of spaghetti. So we have 167 different variants. And if I zoom in, we can see there are loops all over the place. We have cases going forward and backward, and so on and so on. So 167 different variations. And I'm still pretty new to the RPA family, but automating this process would be a real challenge because of the many, many variations. But we see that we have 5,217 invoices, cases, and the majority actually is represented by only a small number of variants. And that's a typical picture. So if I select something like 5 or 6 of the most frequent variations, I can see that my process still has over 4,000 cases, but the process looks so much nicer. And if I'm looking for automation potential, of course, we could maybe start with the loops, again, repetitive tasks. This would be one way to look at it. Or we look for bottlenecks. And if I discover that, for example, we have a significant bottleneck between receive invoice and process invoice of 9 days, then this might be a potential automation candidate. And I can even switch the color coding to automation rate just to discover that in the third quarter, only pay invoice was already fully automated. There was a payment interface, but all the other activities, especially our process invoice step, was not automated at all, 0%. We have the bottleneck, we have some bad KPIs, and we even computed some manual event costs. And we can see that process invoice is not only the most time consuming, but it's also the most expensive activity. So if we decide that we would like to automate this activity, all we need to do is to right click and submit this activity as a new automation idea. So if I click, the system will come up with a form in a second. I can give my idea a name. We collected some data with process mining. We can provide the description, and then we send it over to an organization that is typically called Center of Excellence for RPA. That's the way companies are typically tackling this. So they have a specialized team for RPA. And this team will pick it up, will investigate more in detail what is happening, what are people doing when they are processing an invoice. They will use task capture, task mining, really to go into the details. We have this direct transition or the direct integration with the studio. So you can directly automate this activity. And then maybe after the bot is in place, you come back in the next quarter. Oh, that's great. Okay, connection was lost. That's the demo effect. Of course, it normally never happens. Give me just a second. Okay, again, Q3. And we decide we want to take only the 5 most frequent variants. We have the story and the average throughput time. So here we see the bottleneck, 0% automation rate. We have the high costs, and we have the very bad KPIs. So we're aiming for 95% of perfect invoicing paid on time. And after we have automated maybe part of the process, we can go in the next quarter just to see the improvement. So the process looks the same, of course, but you can see that process invoice has a slightly different color now, because by the end of the next quarter, already 70% of our invoices were processed automatically. This reduced the throughput time just a little bit from 9 days to 7 days, but the cost came down heavily from almost 400 to 222, and the KPIs are improving. And if I go to the first quarter of 2021, it will probably be much more exciting. Yeah, because now, process invoice is automated by 71%. We have even started an automated fine check of invoice, probably triggered by the loop we saw before. And so how much is it? I think it was 66, right? And you see that throughput time really came down from 9 to 7 to 2.1. The costs are below 100, and the KPIs are above 95% where we want them to be. So that's the monitoring stage. And now you think, okay, everybody happy now? Maybe not. Because if I go to another dashboard, my payment at risk, so here I'm using the same dashboard, but this time I'm looking at some cases that were not paid yet. So invoices not paid yet, overdue. So one is already overdue. Nothing we can save here, but we have two other invoices really, where the payment deadline is at risk. It's approaching fast. So we need to take some action. So I click on this button, and yeah, that's a little bit of a dummy button, because this button normally doesn't exist. We are in the automation business, so we don't want people to manually push buttons on the screen. So the system would identify these cases that they are running late, because we know from the past with a little bit of predictive analytics that, yeah, it's Tuesday, it's Thursday today. So if we do not act today, these invoices will not be paid on time. And when I clicked here, what the system actually did was sending these cases over to Action Center. So if I go to our Action Center, I will actually see that I have no unassigned cases. It's like my to-do list. But if I click on unassigned, no pending, but I have 3 unassigned cases, the cases I just sent over. So I can look at them. I could even bring up the invoice, whatever. I can assign it maybe to another user. And then this user could decide to ignore it. Maybe not a good idea. This user could request manual payment. Outside of the typical payment run, please pay today. It's important. I could click on open in source system. Then maybe SAP would come up. I would be logged in. I would see this invoice and could work on it. Or I simply, but this again would cost me some time, the 5 or 10 minutes I was talking about previously. So I would rather click on perform payment, and then one of my bots would take over. It depends on the use case, would take over, go into SAP, make sure this invoice is paid today. And yeah, and we make another supplier happy for, because we paid on time, and we can save some discount for our organization. So, this is really the idea. So again, if I go to my, to the slide I showed you before, so that was basically how to discover opportunities. We didn't have the time to go through the whole transformation or the process, how we create the bots. But then we started to monitor the process, and because we discovered, some issues, then we acted, reacted, and made sure that we, at least the 2 invoices, we paid on time. So I hope, this explains why discovery, process mining, understanding of the situation is so important if you want to transform, if you want to improve, if you want to automate your processes, because this is where it all comes together.
Yeah, it definitely looks super, super powerful. Thanks you so much for giving us that brief demo. I think it was really, really interesting to see. Maybe just a final question on my side. So where do you see RPA have the most catching up to do in terms of which industry, and where do you see the most potential?
Yeah, hard to say, because, again, the bots are able to interact with any kind of application in any industry. So if people are working with any applications, the bots can take away the mundane, the boring, the dull tasks from them, do it around the clock in much higher speed and precision, of course. So, but again, I think that RPA really helps in heavily digitized business environments. You know, basically, whenever I explain RPA to people, I say, I mean, think about the bots in a manufacturing or on the shop floor somewhere, in a typically manufacturing environment like automotive industry. And this is exactly what is currently happening in the front end, on the business side, with applications on your screen. So you can have the same power of robotics in your hand, like a digital assistant working autonomously or working together with you. And yeah, again, you know, whenever you are dealing with systems that are poorly integrated, where actually the point of integration is the person in front of the screen, copying data from left to right, collecting data from 3 different applications, creating a presentation with these numbers. You know, basically every secretary, everybody who's working with the screens, with applications can use this technology.
Perfect.
And, you know, we are working, for example, really with a lot of universities worldwide. So, because I really believe that our kids, and I have 3 of them, so they really have to be prepared for this type of technology. Because people will not pay you in the future for repetitive tasks, or you will be paid very poorly. But you will be paid for your creativity, you will be paid for dealing with customers. So leave the repetitive tasks to bots and take care of your clients.
Yeah. It's very funny that you mentioned, because during my research for the preparation for this webinar, I read that Oxford University predicts that up to 35% of the whole workforce can be replaced through automation. So I guess, as you mentioned, also for kids and future generations, they should be focusing on, let's say, sciences and knowledge base, which are very, very, you know, relevant and which cannot be easily replaced by a UiPath, for example, in that sense.
Or by any other technology. I mean, for example, you asked where I see the future. So of course, we are heavily working on more integration of artificial intelligence in the systems. So the bots are not only able to execute repetitive tasks, but even understand the context, the contextual automation, where bots are aware of what they do and why they do it. It's a completely new field we are currently working on. And it's a heavy investment. You know, we just did our IPO in April this year in New York, and we are using, you know, a lot of this money really in this area.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Perfect. I don't think there are any other questions in the audience. I'm not sure, Rudy, if you have any last words for the audience.
No, I just want to say thank you. You know, thank you for spending your time with us today. So if you are a startup company, then I highly recommend to work with Plug and Play, with Bob and his team. Great people. And yeah, when one day we can fly again, or we can travel again, Silicon Valley really is the place to be. I always enjoyed the time over there. And otherwise, you know, if you want to increase efficiency, reduce risk, then let's talk about process mining and RPA. And I hope I was able to inspire you guys a little bit. Again, if you have any questions, you find me on LinkedIn or rudy@uipath.com. And then, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rudy, for your time and for kind words as well. Hopefully we can catch up in person soon again. So thank you very much. And also thank you everyone joining this webinar. Hope you enjoyed it.